An American Tale, released in 1986, is a fictional animated movie. It follows the story of Fievel, a Jewish Russian mouse, on his family's immigration to America. While it takes place in a fictional universe, the premise of the film is based firmly in reality, and the movie does an incredible job depicting the lives and struggles of many Ashkenazi or Eastern European Jewish immigrants through symbolism and storytelling. Ashkenazi Jewish immigrants' journeys to America in the late 1800s and early 1900s in search of a better, safer life resulted in one of the first mass immigrations to the United States, drastically changed the population and culture of New York, and shaped the immigration laws of our country. Religious persecution and immigration is a theme seen often in both factual and religious Jewish history. In the story of Passover, the Jewish people are freed from their slavery in Egypt and flee. Both in the holidays Hanukkah and Purim, stories of scapegoating and religious persecution are told. In recorded history, these same themes can also be found. According to the Arrow Encyclopedia, Jews were often seen as religious, social, and ethnic others, which made them convenient targets for violence during periods of political and social upheaval. In Russia, Jewish people were restricted from living in the country anywhere outside of what was known as the Pale of Settlements. This is just one simplified example of the difference between being, say, Jewish and Russian, and just Russian in general. It's important to understand the reasons for leaving Europe and coming to America. The economic change brought by the industrialization of Europe resulted in the loss of jobs for many, which left a resounding effect on those confined to life in the Pale of Settlements. Meanwhile, the industrialization boom in America created more jobs. Furthermore, earlier in the 1800s, American companies attempted to persuade people to come to America with the intent of making profits. In their over-exaggerated promise of jobs, wealth, and land, they created the foundations of the idealized golden vision of America. One of the biggest reasons for leaving was pogroms, though normally summarized down to religious persecution. Pogroms, as defined by the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, mean to wreak havoc, to demolish violently, but refers to anti-Jewish riots, during which Jewish villages would be ransacked, looted, or burned, and victims would be injured, murdered, or raped. The word pogrom became more widely and consistently used after the violent events that followed Alexander II's assassination, which was blamed by some on the Jewish population in 1881 to 1884. They continued sporadically after until making a resurgence with other wars and political upheavals of the 1900s. Understanding the context for leaving helps to create a much better understanding of the significance these immigrants' journeys held. The journey. For Ashkenazic Jews who lived in landlocked countries of Europe, they needed to travel hundreds of miles overland through the numerous borders to reach ports from which they would depart to America from. May Abrams, who immigrated here when she was 5 with her mother and siblings from Russia in 1913, described remembering taking long train rides, getting off in the night, and being helped cross borders. The transatlantic leg. The transatlantic leg was a unanimous part of immigrants' journeys to America. Most Ashkenazic Jews traveled in the lowest level of the ship, or the steerage, where they spent their 3-week-long average journey in cramped conditions, often sick. Named the Island of Tears by Italian immigrants. Following the famed Statue of Liberty, the often dreaded Ellis Island greeted most immigrants on the last leg of their journey. First completed and opened in 1892, Ellis Island served as the immigration processing station from 1892 to 1954, when it officially closed and fell into disrepair. It was reconstructed after the entire wooden structure burnt down on June 15, 1897, to the Ellis Island we know today. Unlike its predecessor Castle Garden, Ellis Island had stricter processing systems, and during its time, increasingly stricter immigration laws were put into place. Starting with the Page Act of 1875, which provided for the exclusion of outlaws and prostitutes, but no ground for deportation, restrictions and requirements for immigrants became stricter and more extensive. Upon arriving in America, steerage passengers would need to go through numerous levels of inspection: an initial inspection on the boat, at least one streamlined general inspection of their health and physique to look for signs of physical ailments that might prevent the immigrant from finding work in America, and an eye exam to check for contagious eye diseases such as trachoma. 80% of immigrants who returned away from Ellis Island was a result of trachoma. If inspectors found anything of concern, they would mark the immigrants' clothing with abbreviations and provide further inspection later. The general goal of the inspection was to make sure the immigrant did not become a public charge to the country. Something such as already being employed in America upon arrival could constitute a barred entry. For many immigrants, Ellis Island may have been a landmark in their journey. It was their arrival to America. If they made it through inspection, they would be able to begin their new life in the Promised Land. For us, historians, researchers, and witnesses to their stories, it can serve as a branching off point for different frontiers and effects, such as immigration law. A whole new frontier was created unknowingly simply by the sheer mass of immigrants. Simultaneously, the lives of immigrants can branch off in many different and known movements and connections. Immigrants played key roles in movements such as the suffrage and labor movement, and their communities shaped the culture and city of New York. While these immigrants crossed their own personal frontiers in their journeys to America, it's important to realize how much they impacted our country. On their own personal journeys, many immigrants chose to stay in New York, and often in the flurry and disorienting life of a new country, immigrants would settle with people, languages, and communities they found familiar. This resulted in vast, rich, and dense ethnic communities riddled throughout New York, such as Little Italy and the Lower East Side. The Jewish community, the Lower East Side, was notorious for the living conditions of lower-class immigrants. Tenements were dark, small, noisy, and filled with smells. They were designed to fit as many people as possible inside for the benefit of the landlord. Living alone in one house was unheard of. Tenements would have multiple 2 to 4 room homes inside. In fact, some families rented out or shared rooms in what little space they had in their house with other individuals. While many immigrants were overjoyed to have a new life in America in spite of hardships, many felt ashamed not to be American-born and felt pressured to become Americanized very quickly. Names, for example, would often be changed to their English translations. Poor working conditions were another large component in immigrants' new lives in America. Though more jobs was an enticement for immigration, the large influx of people resulted in job competitions, and immigrants had to settle for more unconventional, lower-paying jobs, often being exploited and made to work long hours with low pay and unsafe conditions out of necessity. The tragedy of the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory is one of the most well-known incidents of poor working conditions. On March 25, 1911, a fire broke out in the 9-story tall Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. Trapped behind the locked doors of the factory and their fire escape crumbling, the workers had no escape. Some, in a panic, jumped out of the window to their deaths. Others attempted to escape via the elevator cables, and others still perished in the fire. A total of 146 workers were killed in the disaster. According to OSHA, the public outcry over what was clearly a preventable tragedy brought a renewed sense of urgency to the labor movement and to other groups working to improve women's and immigrants' rights in the workplace. The labor movement was a long-standing fight for workers' rights. It was made up of workers, many of whom were immigrants and women, fighting for basic workers' rights, proper wages, better working hours, and safer working conditions. Many immigrants came to America with the promise of it being the perfect country, yet it was them who had to work to build a better life here. As the heart and body of the labor movement, they fought to improve the lives of themselves and others, serving as one perfect example of the effects and crossover of immigrants' personal frontiers and those of our nation. Because of the labor movement, we now have many of the laws and systems that are in place today, such as child labor laws and safety regulations. It resulted in acts such as the National Labor Relations Act, which protects workers' rights to unionize. Another example of the indirect effects of the mass immigration is the aforementioned immigration law itself. Different opinions and stances on immigration emerged with the influx of arrivals, resulting in the creation and constant changes to immigration law, starting with the Page Act and continuing with other notable acts such as the Immigration Act of 1891 and 1907. Immigration law continued to be expanded, repealed, and established. It affected immigration, and it was affected by immigration, and currently plays a significant role in both our country and the lives and journeys of immigrants today. America is known for many things: the land of the free, a place of wealth and opportunity, and a country of immigrants. Ever since the first European settlers, America has been populated by immigration. Ashkenazi Jewish immigrants are one of those groups who came seeking the American dream. They traveled hundreds of miles across the Atlantic Ocean in their journeys as one of the first mass immigrations to the United States. Ashkenazi Jewish immigrants' journeys to America in the late 1800s and early 1900s in search of a better, safer life resulted in one of the first mass immigrations to the United States, drastically changed the population and culture of New York, and shaped the immigration laws of our country. They crossed their own frontiers, seeking the safety, wealth, and freedom that was said to lie behind the golden gates of America. Engraved onto the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty is the New Colossus. Written by Emma Lazarus, its famous last lines read, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretch refuse of your shaming shores. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door."